Welcome to the Impact Multiplier CEO podcast. If you're a chief executive, or if you think like one, and you want to create exponentially greater impact, then this show is for you. My name is Richard Medcalf, founder of Xquadrant. I coach some of the most successful and impressive CEOs and executive teams on the planet and help them achieve extraordinary results. And no matter how successful you've been in the past, there's always a whole new level of impact available to you. So, if you're ready to play a bigger game than ever before, I invite you to join us and become an Impact Multiplier CEO. In this episode, I speak with Ian Jackson. Ian is the CEO and co-founder of Enshored, America's 106th fastest growing company, which powers the growth of disruptive startups by delivering tailored outsourcing solutions. In this conversation, we get into the heart of the path that has taken Enshored from zero to a company that's growing at pretty much 100% per year, and which takes 40% of its business from direct customer referrals. They have a fascinating sales approach that differentiates them from other companies. They have a very different approach to managing their extensive staff based mainly in the Philippines. And they've really been able to change the culture from a very hierarchical, traditional culture to something much more interesting. And there've also been some real lows and difficulties in the business, which Ian really opens up about and explains how through those tragic times, there were positive repercussions which have really brought the company and their customers closer together. I really enjoyed Ian's sense of purpose, sense of social impact, and his clear commercial sense. This is, if you like, the reluctant CEO who didn't expect to be CEO and found it thrust upon him and has really responded to the challenge. So enjoy this conversation with Enshored's Ian Jackson. Ian, hello and welcome to the show.
Hi, good afternoon, Richard.
Hey, it's great to have you here. I know that you are the co-founder and CEO of America's 106th fastest growing company, according to the Financial Times, which is called Enshored. So that's in the world of America, where there's a lot of fast growing companies. Yeah, that's really something to be proud of.
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, we that's the first year that the FT has done this this survey, and we're on our third year of Inc. 5000 for the US and our second year of Inc. California. So we continue to manage to hit some kind of high numbers on these surveys. So we must be doing something right, I think.
Yeah, so you're collecting the awards on the mantelpiece, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And and we just had our first 2 Stevie Awards this year as well. So that's become something of a goal of ours, to make sure that we document our success as we go and publicize it. And these things tend to be quite good for that, because they all tend to be based on third-party verification of your business rather than just kind of some other awards are pay to play.
Yeah, I saw somebody on LinkedIn just the other day announcing their award, and I kind of Googled it and looked at it, and it was all about how much you had to pay. So yeah. It's there are awards and there are awards. But what I want to do today is dive into your secrets of scaling, right, Ian? You've built a business. I think you started it in 2014 after a fintech successful career in fintech, and you built this fast-growing company. So we'll look at the highs and the lows of that journey. To start with, do you want to just give us a quick pen picture of Enshored, what it does, and just I guess what it was like when you started? I guess it was just you, or you were the co-founder, and what's the size and scale of it at the moment?
Sure. So we started Enshored in 2014 with the same goal that we have today, which is to offer a differentiated outsourcing service. And we differentiate in terms of which clients we service. So people think of outsourcing, they often think of large offices with thousands of people all doing exactly the same job. So customer service for banks, or data processing for US healthcare businesses, or mortgages and things like that. And I think that while these are probably great businesses, they're not very inspiring to me. I don't really want to be a huge part of that. And what I do like doing is helping high growth startups solve their problems. I think that they tend to be on a kind of parallel journey to ours, so we're in a quite good place to understand it and help them solve these problems. So we do traditional outsourcing in terms of customer support and back office work, but then we also do modern things like content moderation, which is keeping people safe on the internet. And that's something which every day and every shift over your 24/7 coverage, the world is changing, and the ways that people find to be bad to each other change every single day on the internet, as we all know, right? There's new things come out all the time, and you think, oh, who thought that up? But somebody has to be there sticking the finger in the dike, and we do that there as well. So that's basically the business.
And how did you kind of come up with this idea, right? How did you say we want to do outsourcing, but for this segment, which really excites us?
Yeah, so I spent the first half of my career working in fintech for other people, and I moved to Southern California. And believe it or not, in 2012 in Southern California, by my detailed analysis, there were only I think 2 real fintech companies here, and there were 2 in maybe Northern California, and I interviewed with 3 of them, and there was nothing there. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to find something adjacent. And I chanced upon another outsourcing company which is doing something quite similar. And after a brief stint there and a chance meeting with my co-founder, it was time to try and do the same thing. So it was a bit of a leap of faith, going from having had a corporate career and spending somebody else's money to being out there and investing your own money and putting your money where your mouth is and going for it.
Yeah, that must have been but yeah, that's a big moment, right? You have to go for it. What was it? I mean, let me ask you, what was it that gave you that courage to invest your own money and really go all in, right, on something which is going to require quite a lot of investment?
Yeah, I think finding a co-founder with a very like mind on direction and structure was really important for me. It really made it less of a lonely journey, and I think often the founder's journey can be pretty lonely. I speak to other founders all the time and hear where they're at in the journey, and I remember being there, and sometimes you have a product and a proof of concept, and it can take an awful long time for the first real sale to come through, and even then you might not be at even unit economic profitability. And there's a patient waiting game in every business.
Yeah, it is. It's afterwards, looking back, it seems that you've got to the you've scaled the mountain, but there's all those days in the valley, right, where you don't know what's going on. So okay, so that was the start in 2014, and just give us a sense of scale. So where are you now as a business?
So we as a business are currently 1,250 people, heading to 1,500 easily this year. We're on a real fast growth kick as some of our clients are emerging out of their kind of COVID slumbers, I would say. And the lion's share of our staff are based in the Philippines. It is still the best place to do English language outsourcing on the planet. Best bang for your buck, best flexibility, speed to hire, all these things which are really important to our clients. And right now, certainly the education level of people coming out of college is great. I don't know what the long-term COVID effect is going to be of people who have not been in any sort of education for 18 months, as seems to have been what's happened in the Philippines. But that's a different conversation for another day.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So you've got a lot of people, international operations, and I guess you serve clients all over the world, or is it mainly US focus?
Yeah, so when we started the company, the goal was to focus on high growth businesses that we understood. So I came from a fintech background. My co-founder came from a logistics background. We've ultimately done very little of that. Our clients are in a whole bunch of different sectors, which we've had to learn along the way. And then, yeah, we're global. So we have clients from China. We have some of the world's biggest unicorns from around the world who've ended up on our radar. US, Canada, UK, Spain, and all over the place actually. And we make sure we do our due diligence before we start working with clients to make sure that they're going to be good partners to us, and then we get going.
Fantastic. Okay, so and I guess the other question is, can you give any sense of revenues or where you are in that, or I don't know, you might
Yeah. So we're headed towards a 20 million run rate. So we have an interesting challenge that our revenue ends up being per head tends to not be huge because of because we're
services, yeah.
we're servicing people in the Philippines where cost of living is lower, salaries are lower, so that tends to be how things are measured. But we're basically doubling the business year on year, and that's part of, I guess, one of the interesting things is that has been our pattern, and you have to reset your management structures on a regular basis when that's happening.
You need to reset your management structures. You need to have your management start to pass on to their teams, because everyone's having to step up a level. As one of my previous guests on the season said, if you're doing what you were doing last year, you're probably doing it wrong, because that's sheer scale of growth means everyone's got to step up, right? And shift their mindset, which is the hardest part of this often, because we love doing what made us successful last year, right? We want to keep doing it.
Yes, no, absolutely. And yeah, we definitely going through those growing pains constantly.
Yeah, I'm sure. So so you've created this great fast growing business. What did you think, looking back, what did you do really well that helped you achieve that?
I think that at this point, 7 years into operating, I think one of the things that's clear is that we have serviced everybody with our best game face on, regardless of size or scale. And that's been something that we said from the beginning, is that's going to be really important to us. We want to have people out in the world who will refer us into other people, and that's been, I think, really interesting. So we've really, it's been a CEO-led sales process, which may be a bit of a bottleneck, but we have avoided having to hire today a sales team with commissions and all the agency issues you have with that. Salespeople don't want to sell something small; they want to sell something big, and they might want to sell something that you're not going to be successful at servicing. And we've kept away from that. And so we say that over 40% of our clients come to us through direct client referral. It's as a proportion of our revenue, we're still farming, I think, a lot of the work we did in the really early years of the business. And so, there's definitely more room for growth when we need it.
Yeah, I get that. Somebody builds my own business on referrals and word of mouth, right? It's I think somebody once said it's like, just when you have the person right in front of you, that customer right in front of you, that is your best path to any future growth. And so often it's easy to go, I've got that one, I need to move on. But no, it's that one person in front of you, that one new account, that one customer who, if you serve them to your max.
Yeah, no, totally. And
biggest lever you have, really.
And yes, and there's, a lot of people get sold on, oh, I need to be brilliant at pay-per-click and things like that. And we're quite savvy with things like that now. It is part of our marketing mix, but the quality of the leads that come to you is nothing like when you get a personal referral. In our space, working with startups, often people have a very urgent need when they first come to speak to us, because something they've done has become something on the roadmap has been either is on budget or is wildly more successful, and they need help quickly.
Right.
And and they're not in a position to do 2 months of due diligence. They want to get a personal referral in and they want to start working.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it tends to be quick.
Okay, so you've got a couple of things you did really well. So one of them is serving everybody and really keeping the sales process focused, CEO led. Yeah, and making sure that whoever's in front of you, you do the best for. Anything else that you would say has worked well, and perhaps internally as you've got the organization ready for that growth?
Yeah, I think we've been very differentiated in how we work with our team. So outsourcing, if you look at the way that most outsourcing companies are structured, and as we interview in the Philippines, people from the bigger players and then the captive centers, so the big banks and whatever have things over there, many of them seem like they're structured like a 1950s kind of Ford-based manufacturing plant. Very much that there is a hierarchy and people have roles, and managers are managers, they're not doers, and that just doesn't work for us. So we have to teach people to unlearn the skills that made them successful elsewhere to be successful in a world where startups change every day, and their needs change, and the way that we deliver service changes. And we have
how do you do that? Like, if you were speaking to somebody yourself, I'm sure you'd have people doing this for you, but if you were trying to like explain that to a new staff member, how would you try to get that through to them?
Yeah, it's difficult. We have to use examples, and we have to do coaching, and we have to, we get people to sit in on, we do side by sides with successful managers. So right now we have a travel client which is scaling up rapidly, and the biggest challenge for us is always bringing in middle managers who can help with that growth. So we find people who have the technical skills, but they don't maybe have the cultural fit, and we have to have them sit side by side with other team captains and leaders and see how they're doing it. And that's generally how we do that, is we have them sit there. And then our COO is really the visionary that drives that kind of conscious unlearning and relearning process, and he talks about it 24/7 to the staff, and I leave that to him. I'm somewhat remote from the team. I mean, obviously everyone's remote from each other right now in a world of home working, but he's out there in the Philippines in the right time zone with the majority of staff to help really drive that change and that conscious learning how to be successful here.
Yeah, really interesting. Yeah, so you're trying to create more of an empowered, like decision making.
Yes, absolutely.
Culture.
And empowerment is at the core of what we do. And I even have on my desk our empowerment framework, which is a document we published, which kind of for clients and for staff and everybody else that we work with, to help them understand, how we do things, and empowering people to make decisions rather than delegating up the way or down the way, is, I think, the secret to success with our type of client base.
So just explain that. So what for you are the difference between, say, delegating to somebody and empowering them?
Well, on a practical level, I think that is making people understand that it's changing that culture away from being frightened of making mistakes and kind of that CYA cover your ass type attitude to, I'm going to do whatever the minimum I can not to get fired, to say, here's a career path for you. This is what your future will look like if you're successful here, and you need to, you're the canary in the coal mine. You need to tell people when you see things going off the rails. You need to say, before the data shows it 4 weeks from now, that you had a sense that something was changing, and be that catalyst for change. Bring that information into the business, and you'll be rewarded for it. And then we constantly are telling the stories of the successful people who have who have used the structure to move up through the company. for us, our empowerment doesn't just start and end at the company, but it's where our people are in society. And our goal is to help with bringing more and more people and countries out of poverty around the world by utilizing the skills and the education they have. And we're all limited by what we've experienced, so we have to introduce people to new ways of thinking, and they're often quite hesitant and unbelieving at the beginning, and we have to turn them into believers, and that's a lot of work.
These conversations are all about scaling yourself to scale your business. And one of the biggest barriers that stops us from doing that is getting stuck in operations and not spending time on the most valuable strategic work. So, I do recommend that you take our free executive productivity assessment. It's just 10 quick questions to find out exactly where you are on the journey to executive time management mastery. You'll then discover how you can free yourself up for more strategic activity. To take the assessment, head to xquadrant.com/go/productivity assessment with a hyphen between those two last words. Now, back to the conversation. It's the power of community, right? You have to have a peer group who is kind of telling you different stories and pulling you up.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
And one of the things I'm really focusing on at the moment is, for example, a lot of CEOs are kind of solitary, right? Because they're at the top of their pyramid. And so I'm always asking my CEO clients, who are you surrounding yourself with? Which people who's going to expand your mind, right? Tell you different stories about what is possible for you. And that's why, I'm building a CEO community. It's one of my things at the moment, right? Because that, when you get people having higher value conversations, it just changes your sense of what's possible in a way that, you can read a million books or listen to lessons or whatever, it's not going to have the same impact as other people around you that you know and trust.
Yeah, and we all have different learning styles, and we have different things that push us to do things, and it is lonely at in the CEO position in many ways, it is. And often the things that you do and the changes you're making in your organization, you don't see the immediate impact, and sometimes you have to say things 20 times before they're really heard, and that stuff is change management, and understanding that is a challenge, I think. And right now our immediate goal for the business is to structure the business so we're ready to be a 5,000 person company, and maybe that's still not lofty enough, because the way that thinking has changed from, like last year, we probably started last year and we were like 500 people or something, and now we're 1,250 and we're heading towards 1,500.
By the time you get there, you'll need to be at 20,000 or something.
Yeah. Exactly. And positioning people to be ready for that, and upskilling them and changing the structures and everything else these are not insignificant challenges. And we don't have as much control over our growth as other companies maybe do, because we're entirely reliant on our clients growing.
Yes. Right. Interesting. So what are a couple of the things which have been difficult along the way, or that's made growth painful, or mistakes you've made, or what comes to mind?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest challenges I've had is that as CEO for 5 years, being the only person at this level in the company, is working out which hat I'm wearing today. So there's the commercial hat, there's the culture hat, there's this, there's the CFO hat, which I wore for way too long. How do you make sure that the right voice inside your head is the one that's guiding the company? So it's right to be concerned about cash flow in any business, but should it be slowing down your decision to spend money in areas where you probably need to spend money? And much of that then comes back to, when do you pull the trigger on additional hires for your middle management? who you always need in advance, I think.
Yeah, one of my clients was is a CEO, but he was a CFO and then COO. And
Yeah.
so when he was in role, it was really easy for him to be basically still wanting to be the CFO slash COO, right? And I was like, you have people for that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Your job is the strategic vision and future of the company. You need to make sure that you have your team in place who can make sure that you're not overspending, you're going to meet your commitments and so forth, right? That shouldn't really
Yeah.
be your
Yeah.
job doing that. So I can definitely hear that. And that idea of the right voice inside your head, and the hats, it's fantastic. I actually, as somebody who obviously wears many hats in my own business, I have a file called hats, and it's just a question. It's just all the different roles that I might be having to do, and what are the questions I need to be asking. So with this
Yeah.
hat on, am I asking myself the right questions? And I find that's
Yeah.
been a really useful tool to juggle some of those
Yeah. And I would
complexities.
say also with that, then I definitely have created a culture where we are very margin conscious, and
Mhm.
you know you have this whole thing about weighing up margin versus growth.
Yeah.
And a lesson from long ago in my life was a former boss told me, like if you give up on margin today thinking it's going to come back later, you're badly mistaken. You must do everything to keep your margins where they are. If you start getting in the habit of overspending, you will
Mhm.
you'll never break those habits in your organization. And right now we're kind of trying to break that a little bit. And so we've really tried to use numbers to help
Right.
just get over that and say, okay, if we need to spend X percentage of our business on managers, then as the top line grows, we need to be actively out there recruiting, hiring, working out how we tweak the structure, because whether you see it right now or not, somebody is overstressed in the organizational structure right now. They must have too much responsibility, and they're going to fail at some point.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's often about, what I often think about is it's like what are the capabilities this business needs for it to
Yeah.
thrive at the next level, and investing in those capabilities is really a must have, right? Otherwise you do hit the ceiling of complexity. People can't manage anymore, right? And things are falling through the gaps or whatever it is. So
Yeah, and our next challenge is that we've been waiting. COVID has had us on pause for 18 months to open any new country outside of the Philippines, and that is going to really push the conversation around what should our org structure look like. How will a small operation initially in another market, plus our
yeah.
huge operation in the Philippines, plus our kind of leadership in the US, what's the right structure for that? That's not a very normal process. There's probably not too many books about that. And
Yeah.
I've studied what happens with some other outsourcing companies as they move into new markets, and even some of those tactics are just not possible right now. So the idea that you hire a leadership team and then you send them overseas to the Philippines or somewhere else where you're
Yeah.
operating to get them embedded in your culture is just practically not
Well,
possible right
yeah,
now.
how you scale the culture across multiple sites, very in different places and in different local cultures is a really interesting question, right? We could, I should do a season about that. There's so much to say, but I think, yeah, it's really important to get the language. Like, what are the words? What language that we use in this company, and what does it mean? Do we
Yeah.
actually do we know? Have we defined the key
Yeah.
elements
And
that build
I,
our
I
culture?
I'm a big note taker, and when I listen to other people talking, I listen to whatever our current buzzwords are, and I kind of I'll write them down every time somebody says them beyond the person who initially
Yeah,
uh, stated them, and that's a good way to say, okay, are people starting to think in
right.
what the current lexicon is, and use those words because they mean something to them now, or are they outside them? And it's like, how do you think
Yeah,
your customers? Is it do you have client support or do you have client success? How do they make you think differently about how you're going to approach your conversations with clients? do you have team leaders? Do you have team managers? What's the difference and why?
Yeah.
That and
That's really interesting. I'm going to call that, I'm going to invent a term. I think you've invented the bingo method of culture shaping or something like that. There we go. We should trademark it.
Hey, and we use actually we use Grammarly for Business,
Yeah.
which is fantastic. So we're already using it to help us solve for some of the challenges of different idiomatic use of English around the world. And the Filipino
Yes.
English is strong, but it has its unique idioms, which are uncommon. And we put that in place for all of our client and clients customer facing communication, and then we turned it on ourselves, and we look at, it's great for checking your tone and your words and all that kind of fun stuff. And so
Yeah. Grammarly. Yeah. It's a great tool. Good call
yeah.
out. So another thing perhaps would be good to cover very briefly before we wrap up is, tell me the story. You never wanted to be CEO. What happened?
Yeah, so I had a co-founder at the beginning of Enshored, Jeff Bauer, and he and I led the business for the first 2 years together as managing partners. And uh, we swapped hats, we shared the pain, and we were able to lead on each other. And we had really good open communication, and we planned together. And it really helped me take the step into entrepreneurship, having somebody alongside me.
Right.
And we only met about a month before starting the company. We met through a mutual friend who said, "You guys have similar ideas and thoughts and beliefs."
Right.
And we had a few beers, and then we thought, well, we need to change this to coffee meetings because this is getting serious. And
Getting
then
alcohol addiction in the process of building your
yeah,
company.
exactly. And we came out of that with the the genesis of what then became Enshored, and worked in it together for 2.5 years. And then tragically, Jeff died of a brain aneurysm. And these are sudden, unpredictable events. There was no forewarning whatsoever, and it was easily the worst thing that's happened to me in my personal and professional life, all
Yeah.
rolled into one.
Wow.
I
Must have
had,
been.
yeah, I'd gone through 9/11, which is something that everybody who's working can remember, especially those of us who were working in fintech and had people all around Wall Street. This for me made that like a distant second. Actually, it's like I didn't know whether I was going to go on or the business was going to go on or anything at that point. And that really forced me to make a decision about, are you ready really to step up and be CEO and take on all of this responsibility by yourself? And had a lot of support from my wife, and she said, look, just go for it. And Jeff's family were very supportive and helped me through that whole process, which was totally unexpected, that they were going to help me through that as well. And his dad was also a successful
Mm.
business owner operator, and was able to help me with that. And so I still hear him in my ear on a regular basis, and his hands are still in everything, even though he's never been in any of our current physical locations at all. We were in the middle of an office move when he died, and he never even got to see the finished product.
Yeah. Wow. It's that incredible experience. And yeah, it must have been terrible to go through. As you look back, what's that given you? What do you take from that experience?
Yeah, I think that one of the things is that you need to put out there where you want to go. And like, I think I was a little frightened to even verbalize, this is where we're going
Mm.
with the business, and take ownership of that. And I think having that really positive mindset of, we are a growth business, we are going to hit this target, we are going to be this by the end of this year and this by the end of the next year, and put it out there in the universe. And it's been amazing that I think that the conversations have just become much more honest and very more frank and matter of fact with people. I think that our clients appreciate that. There's plenty of marketing, but there's no fake marketing at our company. We definitely say what we mean and mean what we say, and execute on it. And we got a lot of help in that period of early 2017 from existing clients, from former colleagues, and everything else that got us through that. I think we've said thanks.
It probably creates an ecosystem, right? People pull together. Business partners, as you said, business contacts. People come together when you have that human tragedy.
And it really did cement some of that with some of our existing clients from then. Some of the people have moved on to other places and have stayed closely attached to us and connected to it. And you need that. And I think we were saying earlier that being a CEO can be quite a lonely place at times. And how do you build up your network of peers? And that for me was a big part of what I got out of that. Is I now regularly speak to other founders and talk about the challenges of driving strategy when you're up there on your own.
Yeah, for sure. So just we're out of time. Let's kind of wrap up. But I guess the last question I really have for you is, what's next? I mean, I know you've talked about this company scaling, potentially even beyond where you're currently thinking. How are you going to need to scale yourself, or change or think differently, do you think, as you go forward?
And the things that are on the radar right now, we're a fully self-funded and cash flow positive business. That future scaling might require that to change. So we're looking at should we even think about a structure where we bring in external funding, and how would that change thinking? I've listened to and been influenced a lot by people who've never given up any equity in their business. So the company freeconferencecall.com based here in Southern California, who are fully like that. I was heavily influenced by Bloomberg earlier in my career. Mike Bloomberg never gave up any equity in his business to anybody ever. And that's why he's been so successful. And it creates that kind of ability to fully lead things and not allow for I think people to have backdoor conversations in an organization and so on.
And it does allow you to lead with purpose, I think, which is the other thing which is missing. Sometimes when you get too many investors in the mix, the actual sense of purpose that you actually have as a founder.
Well, absolutely. And social purpose is a huge part of our organization. We have a charity. We're helping children in the Philippines with education around stem cell subjects, which is it's in its infancy, but our goal is to roll that out to more and more people, and to invest in the mission of not just investing in the people that work at our company, but in the societies we're in. And then globally, we want to be a good citizen. So right now we're looking at the tragedy unfolding in slow motion in Afghanistan, and we're looking at making investments to help get people out of that country who've been left behind, who are going to be persecuted in the years ahead. And so these are things that I can say I'm passionate about. I want to make these things happen, and I can do it. And whether I can do that with a different ownership structure is hard to say. And I think it's good for us as a business to be doing these things because our clients care, and we're very aligned about that. They're really interested in the well-being and welfare of our people. They want to make sure that we invest in training and everything else, and these things all come at a short-term cost to margin.
Well, what I think I often say to clients is, what are you optimizing for? What are you optimizing for? And I think interesting, your last 5 minutes there, you've actually started to put some things on the table, things that you do want to optimize for and have in the mix, and I think it's knowing those priorities. And then you can see how the things fit around those.
In a company, you have the ownership, you have the clients, and you have the employees. And you need to think about who's happy in that mix. And I'm very Scottish about this, so I always think that everybody should be slightly unhappy, but that's not the right way to look at it. But nobody should be the clear winner in that triangle over the others. And I think that companies will often overserve their clients and overserve their owners at the expense of the employees. And that, to me, is a very short-term approach to how to run your business, and you need to have that part of your pyramid strong. And we've seen through COVID that our people are super loyal, believe in the company, and trust me, to get out of we were in a culture where nobody was ever allowed to work from home. It was absolutely forbidden. Everybody was saying, oh, Filipinos will never do a good job of work from home. And the speed by which we re-engineered our whole operating model to get everybody safely in their houses and
Right.
performing in what was the third market to be locked down globally outside of Wuhan and Italy, it was amazing to see. And I couldn't be any part of that. I couldn't be there doing the work. It was our pregnant HR manager driving computers out to people who didn't, getting through checkpoints and things like that. That's when you really know that you've served and you have a loyal and bought-in employee base.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Ian, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. I love the sense of purpose that is through this business, the sense of kind of doing it in the right way, of putting customers first, but also the fact that nobody should be too happy. I think that's a great quote. I'll plaster it across the podcast episode. Nobody should be happy, said Ian. So it's been a great pleasure. If people want to get in touch with you or find out more about the business, where should they go?
Best place to go is our website. We just spent 6 months making sure that it properly reflects at least the business that we were in 2021. So that's a good place to start. So the Enshored website is a good place to start.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for your time and all the best in this. What sounds like it's the continuing of an extraordinary journey.
Thanks, Richard.
Okay, take care. Goodbye. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Now let's talk about you. When you're in top leadership, when you're in the biggest role of your career, who supports you at a deep level as you lead others? Who helps you multiply your impact and get to the next level? If you're ready to learn more about our content, our coaching, and our community, then visit us at xquadrant.com.